Welcome to Living in the Magic. I'm your host, Rebecca. This is a space for soul-led healing, awakening, conscious living, and remembering who you came here to be so you can move through life with intention, intuition, and the quiet power of your inner magic. As we evolve in our spiritual journeys, as the world is becoming filled with souls that are looking for more, that are looking to more deeply understand their life, more deeply understand their purpose, their connection with the people around them, we also see an awakening of a deeper understanding and importance placed on the food that we put in our bodies, on the chemicals that we surround ourselves with, on the understanding of what is in the products that we put on our skin and we use in our hair and we use to brush our teeth with. And it all stems from a greater awakening and a deeper understanding of consciousness, of asking questions, of people getting to the place and understanding that we are not meant to blindly accept or listen or follow to anything anyone does or tells us to do. It's okay to have someone who you trust, someone to go to when you're unclear and you need guidance. It's important to listen to podcasts like this and like others, and to gather information and to trust those who are, authorities in the subject in which they speak. But it's also equally important to check in and make sure that what you're hearing and listening to resonates with you, and or that alarm bells don't go off and it doesn't feel a little funny or off. It's okay to have people in your life, authorities on different subjects matter, who you trust and you go to for certain things, and others don't resonate, and that's okay. Right? It's okay to take something from here and something from there. What's most important, in my opinion, is staying open and curious, asking questions, not following blindly, and doing what feels right to you. What feels right to you today may be different than what feels right to you tomorrow. As you learn and you grow and you become more connected and attuned, different things may shift. Let's talk about clean living. And let's talk about the balance of clean living, which is really, really important. When someone starts off on their spiritual journey, and you may notice this for yourself, if you're at the beginning of your spiritual journey, or maybe your journey into the non-toxic world, you may notice that you want everything to be non-toxic, or you're like all in on this spiritual journey. You're meditating every day and journaling every day and aware every single day. And then you may get to a point where you realize that it's not always sustainable to be consistently conscious and journaling and meditating and learning something every single day. Some people are able to do that, right? But oftentimes when we're trying to fit into the world around us, we need to find a sort of balance. If we wanted to live a completely non-toxic life, we probably could not live anywhere near any society. And that may be the right lifestyle choice for some people, but for some of us, we want to integrate, as much as we can of a non-toxic, spiritual, conscious lifestyle into our lives, into the lives that we live, without giving up our communities or, the society within which we live. Both choices are great. Both choices are fine, and both choices are okay, as long as what you choose feels good to you. When we start off into a non-toxic lifestyle with all of the content that's out there, it can feel very, very overwhelming. And some of us may have the tendency to feel like we need to have everything perfect. And an important understanding and acceptance is that that doesn't exist. It is important, in my opinion, to stay balanced about whatever it is that you're doing. Balance means that we don't drive ourselves crazy or fill ourselves with regret or feel sick over our inability to make sure every single thing that enters our mouth or our child's mouth is completely organic, completely clean, let's say, quote unquote, perfect. If we do it at the extent of making ourselves crazy and becoming imbalanced, we can potentially cause more harm than good. It's also very easy when we find the world of natural remedies and non-toxic living and spiritual lifestyle to go overboard and have our children in many, many different natural therapies or trying all different remedies. And what that can foster and create can be too much. It can be imbalanced and it can throw a lot off. Our focus should be going slowly, moving in sync with what feels right to us and what feels good to our children, and not overwhelming. Again, we find the non-toxic world or the functional medicine world or whatever it is, and we do all the tests and we order all the remedies and all the vitamins and all the nutrients. And while there's so much validity to that world, again, we get sucked into this space of it overwhelming us and it being really way too much. It is important to be conscious, but it is also important to come into balance. And if you've noticed that you've gone through a period of your life, a time in your life where it was a little bit imbalanced, or maybe you're there, because again, when we find these new things, we want to be all in. And then it takes us time to balance out. There's also the important understanding that while we can and should be conscious of our physical surroundings, the food we're putting in our bodies, the medicines and that we're putting in the bodies of our own and our children, the cleaning supplies we use, everything that has an effect. The physical is important, but the spiritual, again, this is my opinion, runs deeper. There are people who are the perfect picture of health, but not necessarily feeling good inside. They can still get sick because there is an emotional component to it. The emotional and spiritual component, in my opinion, runs deeper. It is the purpose for which our soul is here. If you're taking care of all of the physical, but you're not working on the emotional and spiritual component, you're missing out on a really important part of life. This is controversial, but it's almost like the physical is a little bit of a lower level than the spiritual. Now, again, it's not that it's not important and I'm not poo-pooing it. And I have a whole business devoted to helping go into people's homes and detoxing their houses and helping them find better than alternatives to all the different, foods and remedies and cleaning supplies and body wash and soap and shampoo. Because our bodies are our temples and they're so important to take care of. Our soul resides within them. And a big part of being conscious is respecting our bodies and listening to our bodies and taking care of it as best as we can. But the emotional and spiritual runs deeper. That goes straight. That's the direct line straight into our purpose, into why we are here, into what we are here to accomplish. How come our soul came back into this lifetime? We can take care of our physical bodies, but if we don't get to the root of the emotional, of the spiritual, we're going to get sent back here again. And we're going to have to go through all the same lessons and learn all the same messages over and over and over again. It is easier to take care of the physical body because it's more, 1 + 2 = 3. It's things that we can purchase. It doesn't take the deep internal struggle and strife that emotional and spiritual work does. Taking care of our physical means we live on an island and we only have to worry about our bodies and the bodies of those around us, which is, again, important. I'm not diminishing it by any means. The spiritual is going to affect everything on the physical. Working on the spiritual and emotional is what's going to allow all of the physical remedies to actually be absorbed and work and to not have those same ailments come back over and over and over again. For example, you have somebody who gets strep throat over and over and over again. And I'm not even talking about strep, I'm just talking about a sore throat, right? And there are lots of beautiful homeopathic remedies that can be taken. We can drink honey and warm water with lemon or different teas. And there are many different physical ways of taking care of the pain in the throat naturally without going to chemicals. And it will help. But if we don't get to the root of why that person continues to have sore throats over and over and over again, the physical remedies will help in the moment, but they will still keep having the sore throat over and over and over again. Getting to the emotional and spiritual root of the sore throat is what will keep the sore throat from coming back over and over. Maybe the person will not get sore throats anymore at all, or maybe it will be far less frequently. And when they get a sore throat, they know, oh, I understand what my emotional and spiritual work is. I understand that when I get a sore throat, it's because there are words I needed to say and I didn't say, or I didn't put up the boundaries that I needed to. And there are many other reasons why emotionally or spiritually could be at the root of a person getting a sore throat. But any sort of repetitive pattern that we have or ailment that comes in. I had a client who was a child who had an ache in their leg, and the ache developed. She strained her muscle. In talking to her about it with her mom present, what came up was the week before, there was a counselor who was yelling at her for no real reason, to the point where, it was so not okay that another child contacted her mom to tell her she came home saying that this counselor just kept yelling at this little girl. So a few days later, the girl was at camp running and she got this pain in her leg, like an ache, but it didn't go away. And it allowed her to stay home from camp for a few days. And when we went into it, we realized that, sure, what could we do physically for a sore muscle, right? For a pulled muscle? We can use arnica, if anyone's familiar with that, either topically or orally. We could use a heating pad. We could do an Epsom salt bath. We could use magnesium lotion. I'm sure there are more that I'm missing. And I'm throwing all of these, examples out there, and I'm not a doctor or medical professional. And so if you feel like you have a sore ache, always check in with your medical professional. There are lots of physical things we could do for that strained muscle. When we realize that where it came from was the duress that the child felt, was the despair and the hopelessness and the low self-esteem, and even more, that she didn't feel like she had a way to defend herself. Because when I was talking to the child, I understood that she shared with me that she didn't feel like she can speak up to an adult. Now, there's a time and place, but we need to teach our children that they absolutely can speak up to adults. There's no one that they can't speak up to if they're being respectful. If the child was disrespectful, or they did something unsafe, and an adult yelled at them, right, or put them back in their place, that's okay. The adult, adults are there to take care of our children. But if an adult is just yelling at a child for no, let's say, good reason, or not handling a situation in the best way, we want our children to believe and to know that they're worthy and they're able to stand up for themselves. And so in talking to this girl, we understood that she didn't feel that way. And what I saw when I was working on her was that it's like her body, of course, completely subconsciously injured itself as a way of keeping her out of camp. And we released the emotions, and it brought us deeper into a past life that she had with her mom. And we worked on that. But it's a beautiful example of how it is important to help the physical, right? We should support the muscle as it heals and provide comfort so that you don't feel the pain in the moment. That's okay. But we still need to get to the bottom of how come the physical keeps happening, right? Like how come, in this case, not that it keeps happening, but that she strained the muscle. There was a bigger picture there. And when you sit and you think about things from an emotional, spiritual perspective of nothing happens for no reason. Everything happens because, for a reason. Our body needs to clear something, or is trying to bring a pattern to our attention that we need to pay attention to, that we need to work on. We understand that the physical is important, very important. And I hopefully will have many podcasts on all different sorts of natural remedies we can use to support our physical body, which is so important. But we also have to pay as much attention to our spiritual and emotional. And if we don't, we're living consciously like halfway. I would say 40% or 30%, but that's just my opinion. And again, everyone's opinions are different. I think the physical is less important, but especially when it comes to children and physical bodies, we do need, of course, to pay attention to our physical bodies. So important. But the emotional root is what helps us to actually get to the root of it, to uproot, not just, put a Band-Aid over and make it feel better for the time being. And coming at ailments from both of those perspectives is really important. So the non-toxic world is rearing its head more and more, because I believe the spiritual world, the world of the conscious mind, people waking up, people understanding I'm supposed to ask questions, I'm not supposed to just do what I'm told all the time, is an elevated level of consciousness. It's showing that our world is waking up in so many different ways. We are opening our eyes and we're saying, nope, I'm not going to just accept life the way it is. Nope, I'm not going to just allow other people to dictate to me what is best for me, physically or emotionally. I'm learning how to listen to myself, to be in tune with what is right for my body, to understand that life is here for a much bigger purpose. We're not just supposed to wake up in the morning, go to work, come home, eat dinner, go to bed, repeat, have some kids, buy a house. There's so much more out there for us. And this awakening of a deeper understanding of the non-toxic world and the emotional world is a key component of this. And so I ask you, where in your life can you take this to another level? Where in your life can you look and see, I can be a little bit more non-toxic? Or maybe, where do I need to be a little bit more balanced? Because going to an extreme in any of this, whether it's the non-toxic world, the physical stuff I'm talking about, or the spiritual, what we end up doing is we then turn other people off. We isolate ourselves and we make ourselves crazy. It's rare to meet someone who's living a completely non-toxic life and talking this spiritual language all the time, who's not in the same time making people feel bad about it or making people feel like they don't, like, inferior, right? It's so important to stay balanced, to stay true to our values and what's really important to us, but to stay balanced about it, because then what we do if we're not balanced is we turn people off to it. Most importantly, the people around us who we want so badly to connect to it. A few years ago, I think it was when my oldest was around 9 years old, she had a friend over, a play date, and we had a plastic bottle in our kitchen. And my daughter picked up the plastic bottle, and her friend looked at her, a 9-year-old girl, and she looks at her and she goes, "Don't touch that plastic. You'll get cancer if you touch that plastic bottle." Touching a plastic bottle one time is not going to give anyone cancer. And, I don't know what was happening in that house. I'm not going to judge it. But for a 9-year-old to say that, something had to have been said or scared her into believing. And then you have the families who are super, super, super strict. And then, the children are going crazy at a friend's house, right? They grow up and all they want to eat is junk food. I have a client I worked with who they were not allowed to have any junk food in their house. And now her and some of her siblings, they all have like an addiction to junk food where they still hide it in their homes. As adults, they hide it because they really grew up with this like total inflexibility and inability to have any of it. And so when they can, they just go nuts. We want to raise our children to be educated. We want to educate ourselves. It's never something that lasts forever. We always end up breaking it. And when we break it, we feel like a failure. When we break it, we feel like we did something wrong. When we break it, we weren't strong enough. And then we usually binge in the opposite direction. Now, there are times to do more extreme cleanses for sure. Absolutely. And some people really feel good living, a life without any sugar. And so they do it. Go for it. But it's still important to raise your children with balance, and it's still important to be balanced as you go into the world. Unless you were born as someone who was born on a mountaintop with no one else around you, if you were born into a society with lots of people around you, you're meant to exist and live amongst them. You're not meant to isolate yourself. You're not meant to live on a mountaintop, not connected with anyone else. And that goes spiritually too, because sometimes when we find spirituality, we find emotional healing. We start analyzing everyone around us and we start acting better than them. And we start to make everything really intense and really imbalanced in that direction. And it's a normal process to go through. But the space that we want to bring ourselves to is able to see things from a spiritual lens, but it doesn't have to be interjected into every conversation. We can still be balanced human beings that can live in this world and have regular conversations and not make everyone around us, subject to everything that we know. To be able to be cool. I don't mean cool by society standards. I mean like cool, like chill, but still know everything we know. To be balanced with it, to not allow it to take us out of life, to make others feel inferior around us. So our children can grow up balanced and not fearful and afraid, but just conscious. This is the ultimate in the consciousness of awakening, of elevating, and growing. I think one way to implement balance into your life and into balance in your non-toxic living style and in relation to other people around you is important to think. So for example, when I say this, there are people who are trying to have their children live a non-toxic lifestyle, but they drop them off at the grandparents, and the grandparents have, junk food and lots of things that they want to feed their grandchildren because this is their way of spoiling them. Or, you drop your children off at their grandparents or with a babysitter, and there's like a list of the things that are okay and not okay with you. One tip that I give the parents I work with is to think, is this something that's going to have something on my list going to have a long-term effect on my child if they do or don't do this, or is it going to have a short-term effect? So for example, I had a client who was leaving her child with grandparents, and she had a list of the things that were and weren't okay for her with them. So for example, when I drop off my kids with my parents or leave them with a babysitter, there are the things that are like a no-go, right? Or, for example, strict boundaries my children are going to know. They are not allowed to cross the street without a parent holding their hand. We do not eat food dyes. This is a no-go. My 5-year-old is not allowed to use the stove on her own. Overall, in my house, we don't use the microwave. But my kids get really excited because when there's someone who comes to watch them once in a while and who always uses the microwave, and they get really excited when that person's coming to watch them because they know, yay, we're going to get to use the microwave. I don't like using the microwave for various reasons. But is using the microwave one time going to negatively affect my child? No. But leaving a baby in their crib with a toy car or Lego pieces could one time, God forbid, negatively affect them. And so sometimes when we're trying to decide what feels important to be more loose about and what do we need to be more strict about, we can think in terms of, will one time hurt me or them? And if the answer is yes, then it's a definite no. But if one time is not a big deal, that means we can say yes and we can stay imbalanced. Now, someone could argue that, if I bend the rule one time, my children will, give them an inch and they take a mile kind of thing, right? That's up to you and your discretion as a parent. But the truth is that as a parent, you need to be flexible. Parents need to be flexible. We can't be super, super strict. When it comes to, again, something that, God forbid, is going to be detrimental to a child with a one-time use, yes, be strict. And it's up to you as a parent to be able to be a little bit flexible one time and then come back into your boundaries, right? And come back into the normal routine and structure. That's up to you to be able to come back to it. If you can't come back to it, then you have to ask yourself why. It's not necessarily about your child. Because explaining to your child that, we don't usually use the microwave, but this time we're going to use it. We don't usually eat ice cream after dinner, but it's a special circumstance. We're celebrating. We're going to get some ice cream after dinner because, we all love ice cream and it's exciting. You are upfront saying this is a different circumstance. Allowing for special circumstances in your life is being flexible. The children who, I'm all for sleep training, I'm all for, sleep training is a very broad thing to say, but let's just say I'm all for structure and I'm all for schedule. But if your child has a challenge with missing one nap, I think you should ask yourself, is it your child or is it you? Because missing one nap and keeping you from going out on an adventure once in a while, right? Because your big kids are home and you have a baby at home and of course you want to keep them in a schedule because most days that's exactly what you need. But learning how to be flexible once in a while is really important, not just for you, because that's what you teach your children. Children who learn how to be flexible and learn how to be balanced can thrive because then they know what to do when something gets thrown their way that's not exactly what they had planned. Kids and adults need to know how to handle curveballs and need to know how to handle balance. There's no reason to keep your child away from an entire food group unless you know they have an allergy. If you know it's going to make them sick, of course you don't give it to them. But if not, if you keep your child completely away from dairy or gluten or wheat and they don't have an allergy, they will develop an allergy or they will have a sensitivity, or you're not giving them that exposure, which is really, really important. Now, you don't have to grow them on lots and lots of dairy or lots and lots of wheat, but a good quality one in increments when they themselves don't have an allergy is really important. because it allows them to live in balance with the world. And kids and also adults who don't live in balance with the world are doing themselves a disservice, because the more that we allow ourselves to be flexible and allow ourselves to live in balance with the world, the more we're able to handle those curveballs that are thrown at us, because life is not a perfect line. We cannot control everything. We want to, but we cannot. Balance is about understanding not everything is in our control. And guess what? It's even better. It's not meant to be. You know why? Because when we try to control everything, we say we know what's best. We know what's best. We do not always know what's best. There is sometimes a lot more there out for us, or something we didn't know about, or a way our child is meant to grow, or a hardship or a curveball they're going to get thrown that's actually going to help them come out the other side so much stronger and so much better off. And if we don't allow them to go through it, we will never know that. Thank you for joining me here on Living in the Magic. May you carry what you've received into your day, into your heart, and into your life, walking forward with more clarity, connection, and trust in the magic that is within you.